Louisiana's morning news on 95.3 MNC, your breaking news and weather station.
And if you want further context on that prison shooting that we were just talking about, I have the video in today's daily show prep. Just be warned, graphic content. But I do have the video in the show prep today, which shows the tactical team going in. It shows the inmate, what he was posting on Facebook Live, the shank that he made, how he was holding it against the officer's neck. The officer's on his knees. Basically, the tactical team came right in, and they just a double tap, took him out. Officer fell down the stairs hard. Glad he's okay, considering everything he went through. But it's graphic content, but it gives you context of what actually happened. And I'm sorry, but anybody who's upset at the actions of prison officials that day is a scumbag. I don't know how else to describe it. All right, so let's talk about this other story here. For those of you on the live stream, let me just throw this up for you so you can see it, because it's been a couple of segments since I've had anything up there. So, federal government is likely to force companies to report pay by race and gender. All right, so I've got a couple of issues with this. One, I don't think that a company should be forced to do this. Two, I think it's going to shatter some narratives. There's a part of me that's like, this might backfire on you guys. You really want to do this? But at the same time, obviously, this should be a company's business and that sort of thing. Now, I don't have a problem with the employees going around and telling each other what they made. I know that generally speaking, you're not supposed to talk about that sort of thing and all of that stuff. But, at the same time, I kind of buy into the premise. It really depends on the job, right? So if you're all doing the same thing, yeah, talk about it. Because there might be somebody who's not making nearly as much as the others are, and there may not be a reason for that. If you're in a field, lack of better word, like I'm in, it's a little bit different. Because obviously, talent is doing different things. They're in different day parts. They have different sponsorships and contracts and that sort of thing. And so it's a little bit different. And if we talk about it openly in the building, it can cause some real problems that may not be justifiable problems. So, just interesting stuff when you comes to that pay. So federal authorities are expected to instate a never-implemented Obama-era rule mandating that companies provide the government with employee pay data broken down by race and gender. What? Is there another category for the gender thing, though? I have questions about that. If somebody's a trans person, do they qualify as a woman? Or as the gender they identify as? Does it go into that category? Does it go into a different category? Heck, I don't know. Now, that's another thing. If you're a guy and you want to transition into being a woman, I don't know why you'd want to take a pay cut. Because it's automatic. So, like, if you're, Richard on a Friday and you come in on a Monday and now you're Henrietta, your boss is mandated to now just give you 83 cents on the dollar, right? Right? I mean, we're told that's how it works. So I'm just throwing it out there. If you're a guy on a Friday and you're a gal on a Monday, your employer's probably automatically going to give you 83 cents on the dollar. So you get a pay cut just because now you're a woman. How many people did I trigger? Both of you? Great. So it's just such a stupid thing. Okay, basic economics here. All right. First of all, the wage gap is a myth. We've already debunked it a million times. There isn't any non-debunking it. It just is a myth, okay? But let's say it wasn't. Women are as capable as men, right? That's for every job. Every single one, including powerlifting. Women are as capable as men. And you can get them for cheaper? There isn't a boss in the world who wouldn't have an entire female workforce. Women can do the exact same job that all the guys can't, and I can pay them less? Yes. You kidding me? Men would be out of work if that were really the case. But it's not the case, because it's all a giant piece of nonsense, since I'm not on cable or satellite right now. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC, which works to enforce federal civil rights laws against workplace discrimination, except for one demographic of people, is likely to start requiring companies with more than 100 employees to include pay equity data in their employer information reports. The idea behind collecting the data was that the EEOC would use it to identify and target companies that had a pay gap, interpreting differences in pay as discrimination. What if we find out, just asking questions, what if we find out the white people at the company are getting paid less than everybody else? What if we find out the women are making more money than the men? Does the information automatically get sealed at that point? Does Judicial Watch have to go through and then do a FOIA request and then file a lawsuit to get the data to be released to the public? I'm telling you, and again, I completely oppose this, just on the premise that a company, a private business, would have to justify salaries to the government, which is straight up socialism. So I oppose this on that premise, but at the same time, I've got a feeling there's going to be a lot of butthurt liberals out there, because those narratives are going to start to go away a little bit. People are going to start finding out, oh, wait a minute, hold on a second, for the exact same job? Oh, turns out the women are being paid more than the men, which in many industries, by the way, is the norm, especially for women in their 20s right now. Women in their 20s and their early 30s get paid more than men across the board. Very interesting stuff. The EEOC says that the workforce data is shared with other federal agencies, and although the data is confidential, sure, aggregated data is available to the public. Right. The rule was announced in October of 2016 by Obama. I think I remember covering this. It was at the Office of Management and Budget. But Trump administration scrapped the requirement for next year before it went into effect, citing privacy concerns as well as doubts about how useful the information actually is and the burden that it could place on companies, which it clearly does. I mean, there's a lot of extra work that goes into this. I mean, human resources departments are going to have to work extra now, to compile all of this stuff, meet all the requirements, the opportunity for fines and punishment from the federal government because you didn't do everything just right. That's all there. So, based on just sheer morality, this is wrong. But wouldn't it be interesting? Wouldn't it be interesting if we end up finding out that a lot of these narratives that are pushed by the left in this country, which have been debunked by think tank after think tank after think tank and just basic rudimentary data, what if the government's own report once again shows that it's a myth? Now, for the record, the government's own data and own reports has debunked a lot of this type of stuff, and they haven't cared at all. They don't care one iota, one wink. What they do at that point is then they move away from the government and they go to third-party activist groups compiling data like they did with guns. Remember, forever the left was like, we need federal gun data. We need to get all sorts of crime statistics and everything else about shootings and guns and what were used and what calibers and everything else. And so they did that. And what did it do? It completely destroyed the gun control narrative. So then they said, the government data is incomplete and unreliable. So we're going to go over here to Everytown for Gun Safety, a totally unbiased source, and we're going to go and look at their data, which they've just manufactured literally out of thin air. And that's what their data is going to be. They do the same thing on feminist issues too. Actual state and federal data on feminist issues doesn't comport with the narrative. So what they do is they go to activist groups and they use that data instead. And that data is not real data, manufactured, totally incomplete, oftentimes completely leaves out entire swaths of the data set in order to steer the narrative because that's their job. They're an activist group. I mean, if you're an activist group who's trying to raise money and get attention for being an activist group and then your own data says that you're wrong, can't release that to the public, can you? You're kind of toast at that point. So they manipulate it and they change it around. With the gun control issue, Everytown for Gun Safety, what they do is they start categorizing everything as a mass public shooting, even things that weren't shootings. And I'm not exaggerating. We've gone over that many times on the show. Shootings that never happened are categorized as mass public shootings by Everytown for Gun Safety. They changed the actual definition of what a mass shooting is. It went from, because it's 4 for mass public shooting, it went down to 2. See how this works? So on principle, on morality, this is totally wrong to have this type of a program, but I also think it's going to shatter some narratives. But they won't care anyway. They'll just move on to the activist data. Got more coming up. Newstalk 95.3, Michiana's news channel.